Good evening and welcome. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. This is Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio. And today on Spotlight Africa, Gabon's new Prime Minister outlines plans for national dialogue. U.S. to restrict visas on those undermining Liberia polls. Burkina Faso detains officers amid coup attempt investigation. Sacked defense minister in South Sudan given new post. Plus, Al-Qaeda-linked Islamists behind army base in Mali, according to reports. Now, details of these stories and more later. First on Spotlight Africa, Gabon's military-installed Prime Minister has outlined plans for a national dialogue to be organized next year, which would pave the way for drawing up a new constitution. Nearly a month after military leaders ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba after 14 years at the helm of the oil-rich country, Raymond Ndong told a press conference that an appeal for contributions towards the dialogue would go out from next week. Now, last week, Ndong defended the takeover before the United Nations as a lesser evil, saying the intervention prevented bloodshed. Coup leader General Brice Oligui Nguema, who was swiftly sworn in as transitional president, has promised to hand back the country to civilian rule with elections after a transitional period. However, no time frame has been given. Ndong said contributory ideas would be sought from all categories of the population. In a related development, the United States is reportedly halting its aid to Gabon following last month's coup. In a statement, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the United States is pausing certain foreign assistance programs that benefit the government of Gabon. It said the temporary measure was in line with actions taken by the regional Central African Bloc, the African Union (AU), and other global partners following the coup. Recall that Gabon's membership of the Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, and the AU were suspended following the coup. Announced it will impose visa restrictions on anyone who undermines elections in Liberia next month. It said the move targeted those undermining democracy in Liberia, including through manipulation or rigging of the electoral process, use of violence, or engagement in any other activity designed to improperly influence the outcome of an election. The State Department said the policy reflected a commitment to support Liberians in their desire to have a free and fair vote. It did not name any specific individuals. So President George Weah is seeking a second term in office. He will face opposition leader Joseph Boakai, who was the defeated candidate in the last election 5 years ago. Away from that, now South Sudan's President Salva Kiir is in Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The visit comes at a time when Russia and Western powers are trying to woo African support in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine. According to statements from the president's press unit, Kiir arrived in the Russian capital on Wednesday and was received by Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Rodenko-Urevich. Kiir's office says the meeting with the Russian president will discuss prospects for the development of bilateral relations in various areas, as well as regional and international issues. It added that the visit aims at deepening diplomatic relations and exploring other areas of cooperation on trade, investment opportunities, and security. The two leaders will also discuss the lifting of an arms embargo and targeted sanctions imposed on individuals in South Sudan. In May, Russia abstained in the UN Security Council vote to renew sanctions imposed on South Sudan, which include asset freezes, travel bans, and an arms embargo. In another development, Kenya and the United States have signed a defense agreement that will see the East African nation get resources and support for security deployments as it is poised to lead a multinational peacekeeping mission to Haiti to combat gang violence. Kenya's Defense Minister Aden Duale and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin signed the accord at a meeting in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The agreement guides the country's defense relations for the next 5 years as the war in East Africa against the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab extremist group intensifies. Austin thanked Kenya for volunteering to take the leadership of the Haiti multinational force and reiterated that the U.S. government would work with Congress to secure the $100 million in funding that it pledged on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. In a related development now, Kenya says it is confident the deployment of hundreds of its police to Haiti by January will end gang warfare there. Last year, Haiti's government appealed for help because of the spiraling gang violence. Gangs have largely overpowered the police and now control more than 3/4 of the capital. Initially, Kenyan officials spoke of around 1,000 officers going to Haiti to train local police and help protect key installations there. But Kenya's Foreign Minister Alfred Mutua says it will be an intervention force to disarm what he called the thugs and the gangs. In a separate development now, the authorities in Burkina Faso say 4 army officers have been detained for questioning a day after the military government announced it had thwarted a coup attempt. The military prosecutor's office also said 2 officers were on the run. It is almost a year since Captain Ibrahim Traoré seized power, the second coup in the country in 8 months, but there have been signs of tension within the military. The military prosecutor says an investigation has begun and has appealed for witnesses following what he called attempts at destabilizing the country. In Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, military men used a deteriorating security situation as justification for seizing power. Meanwhile, thousands of UN troops and French soldiers are leaving the region after being ordered out. Away from that, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has appointed Angelina Teny, the recently sacked defense minister, as the new minister of the Interior. Teny is the wife of opposition leader Riek Machar, who is the country's vice president in a unity government formed after 2018 to end the country's brutal 6-year civil war. Her dismissal earlier this year sparked an opposition outcry and threatened to destroy the fragile peace deal between the president and his rival Machar. Reports say under the terms of that agreement, the defense ministry should be allocated to someone from Machar's SPLM-IO party. In a separate development, thousands of people forced from their homes by the war in Sudan have been living in schools that are not fit for purpose. According to NIMR, Abdel, who oversees the state, months-long clashes between the Sudanese army and a powerful paramilitary group have forced 40,000 families to flee to North Darfur. Since the conflict began in April, Darfur has seen some of the worst fighting in the country. Now, in a separate development, soldiers have been evacuated from an army base in northern Mali following an attack by gunmen. According to a statement, Mali's troops repelled the assailants at Archerane, an area near the ancient city of Timbuktu. It is not yet clear if the gunmen were Islamist militants or Tuareg rebels. Both groups have increased their attacks in recent weeks at a time when UN peacekeepers are pulling out of the country after being told to leave by Mali's military rulers. Now, in another development, an Islamist militant group linked to Al-Qaeda has said it has taken control of an army base in Mali's ancient city of Timbuktu. Earlier, the Malian armed forces said they had fought off what they called a terrorist attack. A statement from the military said its troops had repelled the assailants at Archerane and soldiers were being evacuated from the base. Meanwhile, Islamist militants from the group Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wa Muslimin JNIM have carried out several recent deadly attacks in the Timbuktu region. Conflict with Tuareg rebels have also resumed after the collapse of a 2015 peace deal. The violence coincides with the withdrawal of thousands of UN peacekeepers as demanded by Mali's military rulers. Meanwhile, video footage has emerged showing how a plane believed to be operated by Mali's Air Force crashed and went up in flames at the airport in Gao, northern Mali last Saturday. There has been speculation that mercenaries from Russia's Wagner Group may have been on board, but this has not been independently verified. The plane is seen landing in what appears to be a late touchdown before overshooting the runway at high speed. It then passed through what appears to be concrete barriers before falling down an embankment into a gully and erupting into flames. Meanwhile, an image of the wreckage of the plane has also now appeared online, showing how a huge part of the plane's body was consumed by the fire. Away from that, Tanzania has culled millions of quelea birds to prevent them from destroying rice fields using drones and planes to monitor commercial farms. The Tanzania Plant Health and Pesticides Authority, TPHPA, which is also responsible for controlling desert locusts, killed 5 million quelea birds in the northern region of Manyara last week, where about 1,000 acres of commercial crops were under threat. The tiny red-beaked birds, which move in large flocks, are notorious for ravaging crops, with invasions generally occurring during the onset of the dry season in September and October. Ndunguru said the agency targeted the swarms with aerial spraying over a 4-day period, killing them before they damaged the paddy fields in northern Tanzania. He added that aerial surveillance is now underway in other regions. According to TPHPA, the birds are capable of destroying more than 50 tons of food crops in a single day. Quelea birds are thought to be the most numerous bird species in the world, with governments across Africa initiating aerial and ground efforts to contain them in the past. Now, Ghanaian awarded for work promoting safe abortions. Do stay tuned for details of this story and more after this timeout. Many thanks for staying tuned. You're still watching and tuned to Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum TV and Planet FM. My name is Xavier Robert, your host. Now, on a sad note, John Tembo, a dominant figure in Malawian politics for more than 4 decades, has died in hospital in the capital, Lilongwe, at the age of 91. He became an MP aged 27 in 1960 in the run-up to the country's independence from the UK. He went on to be regarded as former President Hastings Banda's right-hand man, and Tembo's niece, Cecilia Kadzamira, was hired as the government's official hostess in lieu of a First Lady. John Zenus Umgapake Tembo was Malawi's first finance minister after independence in 1964 and went on to serve in various other cabinet roles during his career. He also had a stint as head of the central bank and was regarded the most influential member of government during Dr. Banda's 30-year rule. Popularly known by his initials JZU, his most prominent role was being part of a 3-member presidential council that ruled Malawi between 15th October and 8th December 1993, when the then aging Dr. Banda underwent brain surgery and was deemed incapacitated. Meanwhile, South African anti-apartheid struggle veteran Aziz Pahet has died at the age of 82. According to a statement, he passed away at his home in Johannesburg on Wednesday evening. The family described him as a patriot and freedom fighter who dedicated his life to the governing ANC party and serving South Africans. Reports say Pahet joined the struggle against apartheid rule from a very young age. In 1964, he went into exile in the UK, where he went on to coordinate the international call to free imprisoned ANC leader Nelson Mandela. Pahet returned to South Africa in 1990 after the white minority government led by F.W. de Klerk freed Mandela. After the democratic election in 1994, Pahet served as Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister for 14 years, first under Mandela and then under President Thabo Mbeki. In 2014, former President Jacob Zuma appointed him as his envoy on the crisis in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Pa had documented his political life in his memoir, Insurgent Diplomat. Away from that now, Sierra Leone's Vice President Jode Jallow has told newsmen his country intends to tackle mental health, a big issue in a country that has experienced several traumatic events in its recent history. He is leading a mental health task force that wants to help people scarred by civil war, high unemployment and poverty. Reports say during the conflict of the 1990s, child soldiers roamed the streets, mutilating and killing their victims. This was followed by years of economic turmoil. In 2014, an outbreak of the Ebola virus left almost 4,000 people dead. Sierra Leone's government is currently updating the 1903 Lunacy Act so that it includes modern, up-to-date mental health legislation. According to reports, the country has a population of around 7 million people, but has only ever had one hospital that offered mental health services. It is located in the country's capital, Freetown. In a separate development, a Rwandan court has denied bail to a 34-year-old man who confessed to committing 14 murders. The suspect, Dennis Kazungu, faces multiple charges including murder, rape, forgery, and desecration of human corpses. The judge in the capital, Kigali, said that the court would remand the suspected serial killer in custody for 30 days. The judge said that although the man had pleaded guilty, he had failed to show remorse or seek forgiveness for his alleged crimes. The suspect was arrested by the police on 5th September after his landlord reported him for defaulting on his rent for 7 months. Away from that, Namibia has suspended imports of live poultry and poultry products from neighboring South Africa because of a severe bird flu outbreak. According to Namibia's Agricultural Ministry, the suspension was prompted by the alarming spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza HPAI in South Africa. Meanwhile, more than 2 million chickens have reportedly died so far in the outbreak. The Namibian authorities specified that the suspension covered live poultry, fresh frozen poultry meat, table eggs, day-old chicks, and hatching eggs. In a separate development, a new report has recorded more than 300 human rights abuses against the LGBTQ community by state and non-state actors following the enactment of the anti-homosexuality law in Uganda. The report was released by a group of rights agencies under the Convening for Equality. According to the groups, between January and August 2023, real and perceived LGBTIQ+ persons were tortured, beaten, arrested, ousted, and suffered physical, sexual, and psychological violence, including forced anal exams, evictions and blackmail, loss of employment, and health service disruptions. These accounted for a total of 306 human rights violations and abuses based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Meanwhile, there were 179 incidents of torture, cruel and inhumane treatment that included 18 forced anal examinations ordered by police and were documented. In a separate development, a Ghanaian doctor who is among this year's winners of the Right Livelihood Award, widely known as the Alternative Nobel Prize, says she hopes it will bring the world's attention to the issue of unsafe abortions, especially in Africa. Dr. Eunice Brookman Amisa has been recognized for pioneering discussions on women's reproductive rights in Africa and paving the way for liberalized abortion laws and improved safe abortion access. She told newsmen it was a great honor to be recognized and to receive the award, and hoped it would further strengthen their hand to safeguard the rights of women who are dying every day from unsafe abortions. And lastly, on Spotlight Africa, an artist who rose to fame as the first African-American artist to officially paint a U.S. President Barack Obama in 2018 has now done the same for current and former African leaders. Kehinde Willie has done 11 paintings featuring a series of portraits of African heads of state, including Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, Nigerian former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and Ethiopia's President Saleh Work His exhibition, Kehinde Willie, A Maze of Power, has just opened at the Musée du Quai Branly, Jacques Chirac in Paris, France, and will run until January 2024. Between 2012 and this year, he traveled around Africa meeting various leaders, discussing themes such as the history of aristocratic, royal, and military portraiture in 17th through 19th century Europe. He used these discussions to inform his work, creating compositions which illustrate the singular view of each leader on what it means to be a contemporary African leader. Now, this has been Spotlight Africa, brought to you by Spectrum Television and Planet Radio. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. My name is Xavier Robert. Do enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye for now.